Welcome to Through the Looking Glass. Today's episode, we're going to be covering the Second Amendment. But before we do that, as always, I'm going to hand it on over to Russ.
Hello, welcome back to Through the Looking Glass podcast. Some people sitting down, just having conversations. We're doing a little mini series here. Last week we did the First Amendment. Now we're going to be running through the Second Amendment and look at some of the laws, how things have changed in America over the last 200 some years we've been in inception. Yes, I know. I realized that afterwards. Yeah, please like, share, subscribe, comment, follow us on social medias. Enjoy the ride.
And before we get into recording, today is Monday, so after we release this, it'll already be past, but I just want to take a quick moment of silence because tomorrow is Harambe Day. Dick's out for Harambe.
Dick's out for Harambe.
So when you guys see this, by the time we release this, it'll be 2 days past Harambe Day.
What a movement that was. It's so strange how some things gain news traction. It's very weird. Like human psyche is a strange thing.
I had to explain to somebody yesterday the cult-like following from Harambe's death that's keeping the long-standing joke going, and then I had to explain to the person, yes, I'm a part of that cult.
That was what, 2018?
2016.
Oh, 2016.
Yeah. And in 2021, I don't know if you guys were part of the Elmira is Crazy group yet.
I don't really pay
But
attention to it.
yeah, I became their cover photo in 2021 for standing downtown in a green gorilla suit with a sign that said Harambe died for our sins. Yeah. I got a lot of awesome looks that day. Younger people seemed to know, so they were laughing. Yeah. Middle-aged people looked a little confused, like Harambe. Who's Harambe? And then some older people gave me some really dirty looks as if they were saying with their eyes, like, no, Jesus died for our sins, not Harambe.
I mean, he kind of did. At least he died for the sins of the parent who let their child fall into the enclosure.
All I'm saying is society has been on a steady downfall since the death of Harambe. And you know what would have happened if... So imagine for a moment here, since we're talking about the Second Amendment, if Harambe was armed. He could have defended himself.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that a gorilla's arms are considered deadly weapons.
Yeah, but he can't shoot bullets out of them. If he had an AR-15, one of the most deadly weapons on the planet, he would have been able to defend himself.
So I'm trying to pull up, like, the actual writings of the Second Amendment. Brave is being weird, and it's just giving me, like, the ratifications, things like that. It's not bringing up the actual writing of the Constitution.
Second Amendment, right to bear arms, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed upon.
Perfect. All right.
We're the only country with that, aren't we?
The right. Other countries do allow their citizens to own firearms under very strict conditions. So I have Australians, Russia, China, their different gun laws pulled up. We'll run through all of it. But yes, here in America, it is unique where our Constitution was written. My interpretation is that it was written in a way to allow citizens to keep up with the military progression of a government in case that government becomes tyrannical. I mean, that it's a fair interpretation considering the Constitution was written as a proposal for fighting the tyrannical government that was Great Britain at the time. Yeah. So it only makes sense where they were like, hey, we're giving you the opportunity here to govern over yourselves, and just in case something happens, you have the means to do it again. So, what your stance on it, Adam? Start with you.
Yeah, bear those arms. It's also helpful that there are so many guns in America, because if there wasn't, would other countries have been less hesitant to try to invade America. Not only do they have the American military to deal with, they've got millions and millions of people with millions and millions of firearms.
Yeah, 45 guns per person.
Yeah, that's what they're also going to have to deal with.
Over 400 million firearms in America owned by civilians, and that equates to about 50% of the firearms on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big deal. And
It's
what was
one
it?
in 4 households have a gun, 1 in 3, something like that.
And what was the infamous saying from the Japanese? Is there's a citizen with a firearm behind every blade of grass. So geographically, it's near impossible for America to be invaded by land. Like it's just such rough terrain.
We're already being invaded by land.
Yes, actually, yes, but hot conflict invasion is what the saying is it's impossible for us to already be in armed conflict with another nation to where they could land troops on our beach.
Unless it was Mexico or Canada.
Yeah, flooding through perfectly legally. So that's your stance on the Second Amendment. What about you, Jesse?
It's good.
It's very good.
It's good. We need it.
Yeah, I believe the same thing.
Because look what happens to countries where they take guns away.
Yep.
They imprison their people.
Oh, we'll get to those for sure. Do you believe, Adam? I'll start with you again. Do you believe there are any stipulations? Are there certain guns that American citizens should not own? Are there certain people that shouldn't be allowed to own them?
I don't think people should be able to own maybe something like a Mark 19 grenade launcher, maybe a 50 cal machine gun. I mean, when I was in Iraq, they weren't allowed to have 50 cals on top of the turrets anymore because they did too much collateral damage in combat. Like they would go through the target and then rip through 3-4 houses.
Yeah.
I definitely don't think human beings are responsible enough to have that kind of weaponry. We probably don't need nukes, although, I'd love to own a tank. That'd be dope if I could have a tank.
Mm-hmm.
So where would you draw the line then? Because if they say this isn't allowed,
Yeah.
then
We've seen how that
It can be
impediment
it can be a
has kept
slippery
going.
slope.
It's definitely a slippery slope. Because in the inception, this is one of the bigger arguments for the Second Amendment. When the Second Amendment was written, it also pertained to privateers.
Mm-hmm.
America didn't have a navy. We didn't even have a military. So it absolutely meant that privateers that owned their own ships and cannons, it fell under the same category. A lot of arguments are they wrote the Second Amendment when everybody had muskets. Like, no, people owned cannons. Like individuals owned fortifications with cannons on them. So it means the same thing.
yeah, because you could take a warship to a port town and just absolutely
Devastated.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. But it takes a special kind of crazy person, I think, to do that.
yeah.
So you think there should be some limitations?
I think there should, but it's a very difficult line to draw on where we draw that line on what people can and can't own.
So
I think I would say as long as it isn't highly explosive, then you're good.
highly explosive.
Because people shouldn't be able to have nuclear power.
I don't even think countries should be able to have nuclear weapons. Use nuclear power like energy, but not weapons.
But yeah, that's what I'm about.
But here's the problem is that not individuals, but private entities, corporations, businesses do own nuclear firearms. Like Lockheed Martin are one of the only companies in the world that create nuclear warheads.
Mm-hmm.
They're not owned by the U.S. government.
Not
They're a
until the
private
government buys
entity.
them.
Until, they have government contracts, but they are a private entity. So if somebody worked at Lockheed Martin, wanted to steal a nuke and drop it somewhere, they could, in theory.
I don't know.
That's
It
probably not very easy.
might be hard to steal a nuke.
I'm sure. And I'm sure there's different levels where people owns the right or the information to certain technology, and kind of like the original Manhattan Project, where there were one individual would have like a piece of the equation, and then another person would have the other piece to the. So nobody had all of the information, right? It was split up between. I could see that. Personally, I think that anything a government, not just the U.S. government, has, U.S. citizens should be citizens. Citizens should have the right to own as well. It might sound far-fetched, but if there is an individual in our country who can afford an aircraft carrier, we should have the right to own one as well. If Elon Musk wants to buy 20 F-22 jets and an aircraft carrier to have his own privatized military, then he should be allowed to. That's dangerous. I recognize that for sure. And there's always risks to it. But
yeah, I mean, I kind of get it, because the kind of person that's going to buy that kind of stuff more than likely isn't going to use it for. You're not going to spend billions of dollars just to go murder a bunch of people and they get thrown in prison. Then
yeah. But what if somebody like that all of a sudden has like a mental break and goes into like full Hitler mode and decides, right, hey, I've got enough money, I've got enough firepower, I can slowly start to try to take everything over.
Right. But then you have to convince the ship's crew to fulfill those orders, the pilots to do it.
You promise people power or any kind of wealth, they'll do a lot of things.
For sure. But in the same breath, it's, hey, I own one aircraft carrier, I'm going to attack the United States. People will very quickly be like, the United States has like 20, and if we use this kind of firepower against them, they're going to use the same thing back on us. It's kind of like it's saber rattling to a sense, but it's more of a, hey, I got the same iron on my hip that you do, so it's always a risk.
Yeah, it would be, for it to happen would be super, super low
very
chance.
Slim to none.
Because if you let everybody have something, they're going to think twice. Kind of like down in Texas.
For sure.
Everybody's armed. That's why it's an armed society.
Same with Florida. Same with Florida.
Yeah.
Even though statistically and per capita there are more gun crimes in Texas, but that's because there are more guns. Like that's just like an equal correlation. If there are more people with guns, there's going to be more gun crime. It's just going to happen.
Also, though, it's weird that when you look at some of the cities with the highest gun crimes, they're all cities with some of the strictest gun control policies.
Yep. Chicago, Atlanta,
Baltimore, Detroit.
New York City has some of the highest. It's, gun control laws were... You guys remember in the early 2000s when we were in like middle school, high school, when the saying was common sense gun control? It sounded good, but
I never remembered.
No idea what it meant.
I never remembered that in high school. I never heard that term actually until the 2010s.
Yeah, I remember it in high school pretty well. Where
I always thought it was pretty dumb because my brain always registered it as use common sense, control your fucking gun.
Yeah. But that was the thing they used.
Weapon safety rules.
A lot of people don't know.
Well, they need to know. They need to know. Treat every weapon as if it were loaded. Never point a weapon at anything you do not intend to shoot. Keep your finger straight and off the trigger until you're ready to fire. Keep the weapon on safe until you intend to fire.
Pretty simple stuff. I think that kind of discipline training shouldn't be a requirement, but an option in a lot of places. Maybe even in school.
I think you should have to at least know the 4 weapon safety rules and maybe take like a small little quiz before owning a firearm. Like, yes, I think you have the right, but I think you should also have to show that, hey, I'm a responsible enough adult to handle this thing properly.
Right.
Well, you have to, don't you? Don't you have to do...
In New York, a lot
it's not like that everywhere?
I think it's only for your hunter safety course.
I know that in constitutional states like West Virginia and things like that, you can literally just walk into the shop. They do the federal background check, and then you walk out with a firearm the next 20, 30 minutes. It's not where you have to prove that you're competent. It is, you're a U.S. citizen. You have the right. This is what it is. New York State has actually gotten more strict over the last couple of years, where now you have to have a specific permit even to buy a rifle, kind of like a pistol permit. So things are getting a little bit more strict here in New York. I'm kind of on board with that, Adam. I do believe that people should prove that they are responsible with the firearm, but then I think about the First Amendment, and then who's to say that kind of thought process won't leak into the other constitutional amendments?
Because the First Amendment, the way you're using your First Amendment, I don't think those words are going to actually kill or hurt anybody in a physical way, where a gun, if you're not using it responsibly, can easily hurt someone or take their life.
Right. But then it comes to fire, you pull the fire alarm, and then somebody gets trampled to death. What you did, the speech could result in somebody's death, intentional or not. And of course, there's always, you could incite violence with your speech. So it's a very thin line that we have.
You can
to
incite
here.
violence with your speech, but the speech itself isn't actually killing anybody.
Correct. True. Yeah, for sure.
Where the gun, if you don't know your weapon safety rules, if you didn't double check to make sure there wasn't, one in the chamber, and you're pointing it at somebody and you accidentally pull the trigger. I only use this story because I know of a story of a dude that I know who, him and his dad were out hunting. They went back. They were cleaning their guns. His dad had one in the chamber, shot him through the leg. So that's what I mean. You got to use common sense when you're controlling your guns. Know what you're doing.
Yeah, don't pull a Baldwin.
And don't pull a Cheddar Bob either.
Holy crap. Speaking of...
Oh, is that who...
Cheddar Bob shot
it?
himself in...
No, that's from the 8 Mile movie. Yeah.
So,
Because we used to call Bobby Cheddar Bob.
Bob Kemmer?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's that's why you would call him Cheddar Bob, is because of the movie. Speaking of Alec Baldwin, he has a commercial in New York State talking about New York State law. Very interesting, right? Like, bro, didn't you just murder somebody? And now you're on TV again. This is very strange. Yeah, firearm training should be, at minimum, optional. Like a free course, or...
They should propose that, instead of...
the United States used to have, like, gun clubs all across in public schools, so I don't know why we couldn't bring that back. It's strange that...
Well, because China owns our schools,
education.
Yeah.
It's... we didn't see school shootings until the late 60s, and then we started making all these regulations about gun control, and it's only gotten worse since.
You guys think there are some people that... did we cover it, if there are certain people that shouldn't have weapons?
It's difficult, right? Because...
It's probably not the best to give somebody who's
Like
completely
a violent
unhinged
felon.
and mentally unstable a weapon.
Yeah.
Or like a violent felon. Well, I know felons can't own guns right now, right?
Yeah.
If you're a felon, you can't.
Right, but certain felons should be allowed to.
Yeah, because a felony just...
If it's
means-
nonviolent, like if it's a drug crime.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. If you want to be a drug dealer and have a gun, just be like one of those nice drug dealers.
What
It's
about
like, hey
somebody
guys, you want to buy
with-
some crack? That's a little different.
What about somebody with, like, severe Parkinson's?
What's Parkinson's?
Where
I
they
hear it,
un-
but-
uncon- uncontrollable.
shaking
where you
uncontrollably.
shake and everything? That's a
Could
danger.
they even pull? I don't even know if it would be a danger. Can they even load the weapon?
So you're saying like Michael J. Fox, like...
Yeah. He probably can't even load the weapon.
But he's still of sound mind,
Well, yeah.
but not body. So I don't know. Do we let Stephen Hawking own a gun? Like...
Again,
I
can
know
he
it's
even load
weird
it?
because he can't, like...
Yeah, he can't
But
use it.
somebody with, like, scoliosis or something like that, where...
Just because your spine's curved doesn't mean...
But
that's
it
why...
affects everything, to where if you're like this, you can't aim properly, and you might pull the trigger too soon, or it's difficult to
Which
say.
means
you're talking about like cerebral
if you can't
palsy.
hold the gun
Cerebral
up,
palsy
if you
and
can't hold the gun
scoliosis.
up properly because of a medical condition, you probably can't even load it and actually use it properly. So I feel like somebody like that probably wouldn't even own a weapon.
True. But they still have the right to.
Yeah.
Hey, they could buy the gun and then let somebody else use it.
That's why. What?
Yeah. Like if I buy a firearm here in New York, I could legally transfer the ownership over to you, you know? Or
Well, yeah, but how does that protect you? If I was your
I'm weak.
bodyguard?
I'm weak and you're a guest in my house, I'm weak and feeble, somebody breaks in, and I say, Jesse, the gun's over there. Well, there's situations for sure.
Yeah, that's kind of why I think you should have to pass some kind of course to where if you are deemed not able to shoot properly, probably shouldn't have a gun.
So just here in New York, that's where I see it kind of being a problem is in order to get a concealed carry, in order to own a pistol, you have to go through certain steps. You have to get a sign off by, I believe there's like a sheriff. You have to fill out a bunch of paperwork.
I just had a buddy that that got one. It wasn't too terrible, but it is annoying.
They can intentionally hold up the process for you. So if you go to a firearms course and you take the training, who's to say that person isn't like, I don't like you, you're not passing. I'm going to fail you even if you do everything perfect, or
they can't. It would be results oriented.
I mean, New York is doing it right now when it comes to people filing paperwork to own a long gun or a pistol. Like, they will find a way. So.
Well, New York has done that before, and they've gotten sued for
they're still in
not
court for it right now. I mean, Kathy Hochul has like 6 lawsuits against her right now because of her gun control policies in New York City. But the problem is her lawyers keep like adjourning it to a later day. So her policy is still in place while it's clearly unconstitutional and being fought in court. So
and that is mainly New York City too.
Yeah,
New York City is
it's lawfare, you know. Yeah, well-regulated militia. I think there should be more easier access to like just basic training for citizens if anything were to happen. I don't see how restrictions on certain firearms really matters. I can understand caliber-wise, like you were saying, Adam. There isn't really a good excuse to own a 50 cal unless you're trying to stop a vehicle. Like
the only way I could see owning a 50 cal is if like martial law was put into place and the government was trying something really tyrannical,
and they had
then it
tanks
would be
in the street.
Then it would be
Then you would need 'em.
extremely helpful to have a 50 cal with the armor piercing bullets that can go right through a tank.
yeah. And then you can, I mean, armored
I'm not saying
APCs.
I'm not saying a human needs that, but it would be
Well, that's the only
extremely
way.
useful.
That's the only way to stop a tyrannical government.
Mm-hmm.
If they bring tanks in, your rifles and pistols aren't going to do anything. You need
But
big guns like that.
Afghanistan, the Taliban, ISIS, they found ways to do it.
So the
I'm
thing
sure
is,
there are
do you think-
Americans that can
Well,
create bombs and put them in the road?
Do you think the citizens now, with the weapons we have, could actually stop a tyrannical government even if we wanted to?
For sure. Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
You don't think?
I don't think so at all.
If we had
if we
regulated militias, if there were actually groups all over that actually banded together, and back in the day where a city would have, a small town would have a militia, they'd have 30, 40 men.
How does that
would-
militia plan to stop a bomb coming from a drone?
I mean,
Hopefully they would have somewhat equivalent technology and understanding.
Well, I said with the weapons we have now, just our rifles, how could we stop a tyrannical government?
well, if a government wanted to blow up the entire country, I mean, there's nothing we can do. There's just nothing we can do against that.
That's what I'm saying. That's
So,
why I
If
asked.
they wanted to destroy their own country, I mean,
Well, it wouldn't be destroying
we're
the
just-
whole country. They would only be dropping bombs where the militias are located, so they could take out the militias. So then it would be much easier to take
well,
control.
they're not. If the government started doing that, then every other militia everywhere else would band together and just storm all of the government buildings.
How do they plan on stopping jets and drones and tanks?
So here's the problem that I see with it. So are you saying if a tyrannical government convinced every single military serviceman,
Yes, without
to get
without the
behind
help of without the help of personnel in the military, how could we stop a tyrannical government with the weaponry us citizens have?
I mean, there would be a bunch of casualties, but
I don't see a way.
I don't think we could stop them.
I don't see a way where if
They
this
wouldn't-
were a
they wouldn't get away
scenario,
with
if this were a scenario in America, I don't see a possibility where every military serviceman gets behind an order from the U.S. government to attack U.S. citizens. So then,
yeah, I think at least a quarter of
Even-
them would revolt. And it would,
even if one U.S. aircraft carrier said, no, we're siding with the people, that's a big difference.
All right, but if none of them sided with the people, or even if they didn't side with the
That's a-
people and they
this is
didn't,
that's a lot of what ifs.
Yeah,
it's a lot of what
hypothetical.
ifs.
Yeah, I
it's
think
a lot of
it's-
what ifs. But if the military wanted to use, or if the government wanted to use all its military might against its citizens, I don't think there's any way we could stop them.
I don't think there's any way they could beat 50 to 100 million people.
Plus, at the
With
same
the weapon-
time,
If
the-
every town had a couple thousand
With the
men in their
weaponry,
militia,
they had, I think it'd
Sure.
be fairly
with
easy for 'em.
manpower alone, I don't. I
when
don't
you
think
can
they could
just
do it.
when you can just fly a drone from a comfortable office,
yeah.
They'd have to pepper
do
an
a lot
entire
of damage.
city.
But those people are somewhere here in the States, and they would be found.
Good luck getting into an underground bunker.
I mean, they wouldn't necessarily need to. You could starve them out.
Yeah, I mean, at
Cut
that
off
point,
the
it would
water.
be civil war, and everybody.
You
in
have
the
to know
country
where
would
that
just be-
bunker is from the beginning.
They would just be attacking every political.
I am sure there are
Person
people
that-
that would have the knowledge. With the way technology is, I'm sure there are people that have information that they shouldn't have, and they would be willing to give. Plus, if the U.S. government in its entirety, all of its military, said we are going to shift
our
from the
al-
constitutional
our
republic
allies would
to
step
a
in as well.
dictatorship, the American citizens would find aid from other countries. So if there were
What if other
no
countries?
other-
What if other countries too decided to help America?
It's too many
That-
what
yeah,
ifs.
that's-
This is completely
That's like a
implausible.
1 in a 6
It's completely
trillion chance.
It's implausible.
Because you could
is it
always
implausible
you could
or
always
is it
play.
impossible to beat them?
I mean, you're
It's
talking.
not. The ISIS beat us. Like there are people in caves with AKs that are 60 years old, and they beat us.
I wouldn't necessarily say they beat us.
All right, then
It's just
Vietnam. Viet Congs beat us. Like they won. So sure, if the complete and total crackdown of all military force was launched against the U.S. population, it would be. What is it when? It would be mutual destruction. It would just be mutual destruction. I don't see a scenario where the U.S. military would be able to do such a thing, and there wouldn't be such mass casualties that the U.S. government even survives it.
Yeah.
It's just completely
Because I
implausible.
think they know not to do that because we're so well armed.
And the entire world would just look at them like, what did you just do?
Yeah, they would essentially have to put down a
would be-
rabid dog.
yeah. American government would be recognized as
Insane.
the Nazis.
Yeah.
Like it's just not a feasible or plausible hypothetical. It's just not. It's too wild.
Yeah, and at that point, China and Russia would probably just team together and
Oh yeah, then they would invade us, and then
they'd be like, "Well, that's easy pickings."
That's kind of the danger of the possibility of another civil war in America. I think after, or even near the end, if we would be so weak where they would. Try
I don't know if civil war is a possibility. I think it's more of an inevitability at this point. Even Albert Pike back in the late 1800s predicted another civil war in this country and that it would coincide with World War III when he penned that letter about the three world wars before any of them even happened.
There are some theories that the First World War and Second World War are actually like one big war combined.
Yeah, they do have, like, they share...
that there was too much strife in between for it to have been considered.
Because it was only, what,
no
17,
war.
18 years in between?
Yeah. So...
And it was a lot of the same players.
Yeah. We are pushing very close to a global third world war. And it's possible that we're in it. Because who determines when the start date of the world war? Right?
I would definitely say we're in it, and I think
Ukraine,
I think
Israel,
a lot of
there's
I think a lot of what this third world war we're already in. I think a lot of it has to do with psychological warfare.
Oh, for sure. Mm-hmm. Yuri Bezmenov talked about that in the 70s. So, and there's been other Russian defectors who have talked about it. We have Chinese defectors who have been talking about what happened during the Cultural Revolution in China. One of my favorite new skits that have kind of come out was David Hogg, who is a gun control advocate, was absolutely schooled not long ago by basically a Chinese defector. She asked him, with all of the information and historical documentation we have of what happens when a government becomes tyrannical, could you give me a guarantee right now that our government would not become tyrannical? To David Hogg responds, no, I cannot guarantee that. Her response then is, gun control is moot then. You have no right to take away our firearms because you cannot guarantee a government will not abuse its citizens. Like, once you take the guns away, that is the beginning of the abuse from the government. That's the beginning of it.
Yeah, because look at countries that are looked at as pretty docile, like Australia. They were abusing their citizens years ago when they took away their guns in 93 or 94 or something.
Australian has a comprehensive system of gun control laws, which were introduced in response to a mass shooting in 1996. The National Firearm Agreement, NFA, was signed by all Australian states and territories. Key features: license to own a gun. To own a gun in Australia, you need a license, which requires a background check. I agree with a background check. That's just like if you're a violent criminal that has murdered people or beaten people, you probably shouldn't own a firearm because you are a danger to everyone around you. Demonstration of good reason for owning a firearm, which is very loose-tongued. I think that's not good. Three main categories: the buyback scheme in 1996, where they basically bought back all of the guns that all citizens owned.
It was a forced buyback, I think.
It was, yeah. It was, you can sell them to us, or
we'll
we will
them.
just come in and confiscate them anyways, so you might as well just sell them back to us. And we saw what happened with Australian government crackdown during the COVID-19.
Yeah, cops were beating up old ladies.
They were beating up old ladies, telling people they can't protest against the government, and then they had the concentration camps.
Those were very nice resorts that they sent people to get healthy.
Mm-hmm. They were such
that
nice
if
resorts.
They tried to leave, they would hunt them down and drag them
They were
back.
such nice resorts that people were constantly trying to escape them. Yep, so nice. Same thing with Russia. The Bolshevik Revolution, one of the first things they did was they disarmed all of the bourgeoisie and the Christians. They disarmed everybody who wasn't on the party of socialism, started rounding them up and put them in gulags. Same thing with the Cultural Revolution in China. They started disarming all of the citizens. That's the first move. Disarm the citizens. Because even if a government could take over and be tyrannical and just force its citizens into servitude and slavery, no government wants to do it with armed conflict.
Yeah.
It's just the bloodshed from it. It's just not, it wouldn't look good optically, and you would lose at least 10% of the national population from it. And then that kind of violence would be carried generationally. Second Amendment, good. To give us some leeway with this hypothetical of yours, Adam, you got to give us some leeway so we can try to work it out. Because saying pure absolutes where the government has all of the government decides they're going to take over, but
I think we covered it pretty well with all the ifs, ands, and
even if half the military were to walk away and say we're not doing that, if they walked away but didn't have control of any of the military technology and we're still fighting on our side with just our rifles,
but why wouldn't they?
They would just.
Why wouldn't they have control?
Yeah, they would just
of
take
that
it.
Military technology.
See, I feel like that would cause a civil war in a different kind of way. It'd be more.
I think that's
it'd be
just-
more
I
than
think
just the
that's just what would
citizens.
happen, for sure.
It'd be within our own military as well.
So the
even 20% defense.
But I'm-
probably
but I'm
what would
saying
be
even-
considered the defectors.
Even though there's
they
way more citizens in this country with way more guns than there is people in all the military branches combined. If it was our military versus the citizens, there's no way the citizens win.
I mean, on paper, sure, but that's not how it
Yeah.
would. That's not how it would.
I think that's exactly how it would play out. If it was just the citizens versus the military, there's no way we win.
So
I mean, yeah, if you put us on a battlefield, Civil War style, one end and one end,
Not
yeah,
even.
you're not gonna.
American
but
citizens would
there's too many nuances.
American citizens would very quickly adopt guerrilla warfare, and the U.S. military, as it stands, doesn't really have an effective way to fight against guerrilla warfare.
Drones are a pretty effective way.
The drones have to be able to find the people.
Yeah, and it's not like everybody is in one group.
Yeah. There would be a very large portion. So let's say 50% of U.S. citizens just say, okay, this is it. The government is cracking down. Whatever happens, happens. I don't want to be involved. And then you have, so 50%. So we're down to 150 million U.S. citizens. If we then take 50% of that, that's still 75 million Americans who are willing to stand up for their rights to fight against a tyrannical U.S. government.
Yeah, I think that many.
That's a
they can't fight against
lot.
those numbers regardless of what.
That's
they
a
would
lot
have
of
to
people.
nuke their own country.
That is,
That's why you can't invade China because they have
It's-
1.3 billion people or something ridiculous.
it would be easier, but this then comes down to the Russian solution for warfare. Throw bodies at the problem until the problem is solved. That's what they did in World War I, it's what they did in World War II, and it's what they did during the Bolshevik Revolution. Throw bodies until you overcome it. And it would be the same thing with American citizens. We would just keep throwing bodies at the problem until we eventually overcame. Because, so the U.S. government has a limited stock and supply of missiles and ammunition. They would eventually run out. They need fuel, they need food, they need ammunition, they need to keep morale. I don't see it working. Unless it was, we're the U.S. government, we will drop 3 nukes on our own country to prove a point that we're not fucking around. Maybe they would be able to convince America to be like, all right, stop killing us. We'll do what you say.
I don't think so. I think everybody would just storm every
Maybe.
Capitol, the Capitol building, the White House. There's no way they could stop them.
There would be enough government buildings that would get stormed very, very quickly. And then even police and armories. Like, there's military armories all across the country. They would very quickly get overrun by U.S. citizens, and then we would have our hands on
That's
machine
true.
guns, Humvees. Somebody will figure out how to drive a tank. So,
Maybe you'll have more than half the population out doing TikTok dances and just sitting on their phones
in
watching
the
what's going
streets,
on.
just bodies, 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 bodies. Maybe. It would be a shit show for sure. But I think the reason why the government, as corrupt as it is, and as much as it's playing this weird game where they're trying to manipulate us and persuade us, indoctrinate us, the reason why they haven't resulted to armed conflict is because they realize the consequences of it. maybe one day it'll come to where it's the U.S. government versus the U.S. citizens, but
I think it's going to be more likely
hard.
that it's citizens against citizens again.
oh yeah, for sure. That's what you believe that's what they're pushing us towards, right?
Oh yeah, they're trying to divide
I
us.
think that's why they're just trying to divide us in every single way possible. Make everyone hate everyone, and then when the time comes to go to war because of that hate, everyone will be like, hell yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
That's why I said on the last episode, like, the way we throw labels on people from opposite sides, to me, is a bad thing, because you almost throw a label on them to try to dehumanize them in a way to make them seem like an enemy and to put yourself above them. And I hate that idea.
Yeah. I understand that, but
Especially
kind of
too
what we do
because
as humans.
especially too because when you slap somebody with one of those labels, I feel like you start to immediately assume that you know everything they're going to say and everything about them and every view they hold, which is far from the truth.
For sure. There could be a niche view that they hold about one thing, but then they agree with you with 90% of the other stuff.
It's like, this is one of the reasons why I can't stand the show The View. But I saw a clip from it the other day where they were talking about that Kansas City Chiefs player that gave the commencement speech at the college. And as she's throwing buzzwords at him, she also calls him a white supremacist. Like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Like, you can't just slap these labels on people. You know, words
they love that.
words do have meaning, and when you start slapping these words onto people where they don't fit that meaning, the words start to lose any credibility.
they get
at
watered
all.
down, and
Same thing. We've seen it with racist over the last
Sexist,
over the last
misogynist.
5 years. If somebody calls you a racist, it's almost like a badge of honor now. It's like, cool, I hold a view that you don't like, so now I'm a racist, even though I didn't mention race. I have no superiority complex whatsoever, and you're just espousing nonsense. The fact that you brought race into the subject makes you the racist.
yeah, they just want you to look
Yeah.
negative
They wanna
in the public eye.
slap labels.
So to go back to the militia thing, do you guys think there should be militias?
I think every city should have one, man.
And-
Give the guys something to do every weekend. Hey, let's get together and go
Would
shoot
the
some
government
targets.
allow that?
They
They have no
according to the
right to not allow
Constitution,
it.
They have to.
They have
allow
to.
Yeah,
it.
but they don't follow the Constitution half the time. So if
Well, I don't think
if,
it's the federal government. I
if
think it's
military
state to
groups
state.
started popping up in pockets all over, do you think they would shut that down?
They have. There are small militia groups. There's a couple here in New York. There's a couple in Pennsylvania that I know about. There are people who do armed training privately, but in the same breath, the U.S. government has its own form of militia. You could be a weekend warrior. You can join the National Guard.
Yeah.
National Guard is basically a militia force.
Yeah,
You get
part-time,
specialized training, but I believe such training is important for humans, primarily for men. Men need structured, disciplined things to do like that, and it builds camaraderie within a community. Without that, like Adam said, we start throwing labels at each other. But if I, as an individual, have viewpoint A, B, C, but I'm working in a structured environment with somebody who has opinion D, C, E, F, there's still a connection there, and we
Yeah.
can learn to cooperate.
Yeah, you can find the commonalities
Yeah.
instead of bickering about what you have not in common.
I think the internet needs to get turned off just for a little while, bro. We just need to turn the internet off just for a little while. If
Lot of
people start
people-
going outside and actually speaking to each other again, a lot of things would change.
A lot of people suffer from chronically online syndrome, and
I
it
do
and
sometimes.
it tells because their whole view of the world comes from the internet, and they've not actually gone out and experienced the world.
As the saying goes, go touch grass, bro. It's true. There are definitely people who are chronically online, and you never truly know who it is you're talking to. You could be talking to a 12-year-old in Cambodia who just wants to get a few laughs on American jerkwads. You have no idea. Oh, they got a picture of a cat, and they have a profile that's 2 weeks old with the names James 54739244321. Okay, cool. Cool thing, James. Nice.
Did the Second Amendment cover anything else, or was it just bear arms and militia?
The right to bear arms and its interpretations.
And that it may not be infringed upon.
Oh yeah,
Which means all laws.
yeah.
It's all gun laws are an infringement on the Second Amendment.
That is interesting.
But it's something as a society we've accepted because the majority does see that there is a problem with owning certain firearms and things like that. It was the mid 1800s. I mean, old Western films and things like that. When the Midwest was being colonized, still, it's.
What president was it that had a gun duel? Was it Andrew Jackson?
I know, like, gun duels back in the days, a majority of them were just, like, respectful things.
Yeah, you would show up and then you would shoot next to them or something.
But then one president was like, nah, dog, fuck
I'm winning
you.
this, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think they outlawed it after that.
It was Andrew Jackson. It was in 1806. The future President Andrew Jackson nearly died in a duel when he killed his opponent, a fellow plantation owner.
There was another president who beat a man to death on the White House lawn. He caned him to death.
Alexander Hamilton also died from a gunshot wound in a duel.
Interesting.
You Googling that?
Some accounts estimate that Andrew Jackson had over 100 gun duels.
Jeez.
100 gun duels? That man just wanted to test his theory.
I guess it counts as a win if you don't die.
It's definitely a win if you don't die.
Execution on the White House lawn. Persistent story that on the White House lawn, Thomas Jefferson personally executed a prisoner for treason. That's not the one. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm misremembering the story. Man and agent in shooting.
Maybe he
on the White
executed
House.
him by beating him with a cane.
Shot a man on the White House. This is Cure, made up story in the movie. Damn Hollywood. Comes from a movie script.
Yeah, I was about to say, maybe it was a movie. I'd never heard of that.
WordPress. Thomas Jefferson.
Kind of crazy.
Watch Dogs. It's undeniably true that we here at Woof have a positive fetish for the ridiculous quote. We also... Shut up. There is no Robert Lundum, PhD at the University of Wisconsin, nor ever was there. Yeah, it looks like it might have just been a story written.
But, I mean, Thomas Jefferson killed somebody. What is they? A slave for treason? Or a prisoner for treason?
Yeah. Sometimes I think I just remember weird stuff for no reason. Just random things pop in my head. Maybe I'm making them all up. Could be. That's the U.S. Constitution. Where I had one pulled up for like interpretations. Well-regulated militia, comma, being necessary to the security of a free state, comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, comma, shall not be infringed. Individual rights, one of the interpretations is the individual rights versus a collective's rights. So it is theorized that the Second Amendment was actually written as a collective, not for individual rights. There are two main interpretations, Second Amendment, individual rights and collective. Individual right interpretation holds that the Second Amendment guarantees an individual's rights to possess and carry firearms for self-defense, hunting, other lawful purposes. Supported by the Supreme Court's decision, District of Columbia versus Heller in 2008. That's what started like the big snowball for constitutional carry, and then the ruling that actually overturned the assault weapons ban. McDonald versus City of Chicago in 2010. And the collective right interpretation holds that the Second Amendment only guarantees the right of the states to maintain a militia and does not provide an individual right to bear arms. The interpretation is supported by some legal scholars and has been rejected by the Supreme Court.
Probably the ones that are just anti-2A, and they try to make it sound.
I understand. I understand the stance or how somebody could interpret it as a collective rights, but it's been rejected by the Supreme Court, and it does say the right of the people.
Yeah.
So I can see where that interpretation leads them to the collective, because the people means like the people that govern the body.
Well,
not the people as individual, the people collective.
I mean, you'd have to be pretty dumb to see it that way.
Legal scholars, I mean.
Well, like I said, they
make
it. They just try to morph it to make it sound how they want it to sound.
I think it's
because if you got 4% of legal scholars saying that compared to everyone else, then.
But I think, like, I'm for the individual rights. I can.
Well, yeah, the Constitution is for the people. It's written for the people.
The collective interpretation is counterintuitive, because the point of the Second Amendment is so that people could protect themselves. But if you give the right of the government to protect the people, they don't care about protecting the people for the most part. We're nothing more than tax dollars and wage slaves. District of Columbia versus Heller held that the Second Amendment protects an individual's right to possess a firearm for traditionally lawful purposes, such as self-defense within the home.
Who's breathing in the mic?
Probably me. I'm, for some reason, having trouble reading today. Court held that this is McDonald versus Chicago. Court held that the Second Amendment applies to state and local governments, and that the right to bear arms is not limited to the federal government. Prince versus the United States in 1997, right after they implemented the assault weapons ban in 96. Court held that the Second Amendment does not grant the federal government the power to regulate the sale of firearms to individuals. So states that have laws saying you can't buy certain, that says specifically federal government. None of these have to do with states' rights. So the federal government, like the, the alcohol and firearm, the ATF?
ATF, yeah, alcohol and tobacco.
The ATF is an unconstitutional organization. Like, they have no rights to tell us what we can and cannot own. Like the bump stock ban, it's completely illegal. But we just allow it. Sure, government, whatever you say.
Didn't Trump overturn that?
No, he was the one that he was the one that pushed it.
Oh, really?
He wanted the bump stock ban. That's why a lot of gun owners actually have a problem with Trump's stance on gun ownership. But even at the Libertarian convention, he said that he's kind of changed his stance on it. Like, I think he sees what's, a little bit more clearly, seeing what's happening in the country, and he's like, just in case, you have the right to own whatever you want. Like, shit could pop off. Any other opinions on gun ownership or anything like that?
I have right to pew pew. That's about it.
Yeah, freedom seeds for everyone. Freedom seeds for everyone.
Are there any states that don't allow its citizens to have guns? I know California is really, really hard to get one.
I don't think there's any that restricts it.
That would be struck down almost immediately if a government wrote a law that said specifically our citizens cannot own firearms.
Isn't that how it is in D.C.? DC, you can't have a firearm unless you're part of the military, I think. I think
DC's in.
I think DC is a no gun zone.
Well, because those are federal grounds, isn't it? DC is technically federal ground.
What would that matter?
I don't know.
The Constitution is federal.
Well, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Boebert both brought firearms onto the congressional floor. So
Yeah, you can own weapons in D.C.
Oh.
it's
Rifles,
probably,
shotguns, revolvers, and handguns may be registered in the District of Columbia.
So it's probably just like New York and California, though, where they make it incredibly difficult for you. You know, it's one of those. Yeah, I think.
You can't own an AR-15 in D.C., though.
Which is
so yeah, maybe
weird.
that's what I was thinking.
So, does it say specifically AR?
Yes.
Okay, so I can't
Assault-
own an Armalite.
Assault weapons in Washington, D.C.
Assault weapons.
The District of Columbia deems assault weapons unregisterable, thereby prohibiting possession of these firearms. But do they actually classify an AR-15 as an assault weapon? Because I thought assault weapons were fully automatic is what they considered
See,
those.
we're about to find out the different definitions here. In the United States, assault weapon is a controversial term applied to different kinds of firearms. There is no clear, consistent definition.
There's no definition.
So it probably goes
They
state
say
by
anything
state.
that looks scary.
Yeah.
So if I have an AR-15, it's just a rifle. If I take that AR-15 and smash you in the head with it with the buttstock, it now becomes an assault rifle. I have now assaulted you with my rifle.
I mean, if I take a lead pipe and hit you over the head,
It
that's
now becomes an assault lead
weapon.
pipe.
Yeah. I could take a can of beans and smash Jesse
Those
in
are
the
now
face.
assault beans.
Yeah. Like, what constitutes that nebulous term?
I think they always
infuriates me.
they
use it to
they
make
compare
it
them
sound scary.
to military style weapons, which they use everything.
Yeah. It's like,
It's
have you seen military weapons from like World War II? The M1 carbine that used 308 rounds, that's devastating. That is like it's a wooden stock and it's a standardized rifle body, but it was used in war. So like there's Glocks as firearms used in war.
Yeah.
Drones are used in war. So me owning a drone and flying it around the city, that's a weapon now?
Yeah, I mean it's mainly them not knowing what they're talking about.
No, I think it's them purposely
They're trying to
purposely weaponizing language.
Yeah, they're trying to
'Cause
make it sound worse
yeah.
than it is.
There's no need to add assault to weapon. It is just a weapon. Literally anything is a weapon. I could take a pool cue, snap it in half, and stab you in the heart with it.
I never understood why they are so anti-gun. Why do they want guns gone?
I believe.
Do they really believe that it's going to make it safer?
No, I think they think it'll be easier to take control without them.
But you see, here's where the left versus right fight comes into play because it's only one side that pushes the guns bad narrative.
And
See-
it's only one side of one side. Because regular leftists, you got like the the Browning Club or the Brown Club, which is a leftist
Socialists.
organization.
They're socialists.
That
They believe
they have a gun
in-
club.
Yeah.
They're like,
True socialists do believe in the right for the people to own firearms. They do. How else are you going to collectively protect your collective property?
Yeah.
Like how else are you going to collect
yeah, it's
your
only like
homestead, your farm?
the farther left that just are anti-gun, and I
Yeah,
think
most
I
of
think
the-
it's mainly from ignorance.
Tankies.
Most of the
think it's
people I know
ignorance
that
as
are
well.
on the left don't want to take our guns. They're all for us being able to keep and bear our arms.
Yeah, they might want to regulate it in some form. But
I think some of the hysteria from them taking our guns comes from that chronically online syndrome.
Yeah.
People chronically online see the hysteria online, and then they assume
Yeah,
that
they-
everybody on the left just wants to come take our guns, but that's not
and
true.
They only see the negative things that come. A couple mass shootings here or there. Somebody shoots 3-4 people.
And they do hyper focus on mass shootings and things like that.
Yeah, they
But-
never focus on the defensive uses where it actually saves people. Not very often. They
It's actually over 1 million a year.
yeah, it's crazy.
They're like the defensive use of firearms, it greatly outweighs the offensive uses.
That's how a lot of the mass shootings stop. Is a security officer or some guy in the parking lot has a gun, and
If everyone was walking around with a gun on their hip, there wouldn't be the mass shootings the way there is.
No,
People would be. They would just know, like, hey, I'm only going to get a couple bodies.
I don't think it should be against the law for school staff.
Yes, they should allow teachers to be armed. They shouldn't force them.
There, of course, are teachers.
There'd be
that
no
would
mass
want
shootings.
to.
There'd be none. Or
I think we
they
would see more
people would attempt
classroom
them.
incidents. I think we would see more teachers getting, there would eventually be a teacher who was like, I can't stand this child anymore.
Perfect example of good citizens
if
being
that were to
armed,
happen,
stopping that, or when the mall shooting in Illinois happened. I believe it was in Illinois, where the guy had a rifle in the food court of a mall and was opening fire, and a guy with a pistol shot him from like 50 yards away.
Yeah, that was very brave of him.
But that's what I mean. If more people were actually carrying like that, then I think you'd see a lot less of those kind of crimes.
Yeah, I think if a teacher wanted to gun down his own classroom, he would just bring in a gun anyway. If you're that deranged, you would just bring in a weapon anyway.
No, I'm saying it's there will be a scenario where a teacher has just had enough with like a specific kid doing something in the classroom.
I wouldn't believe that story. I would think I would think it was a plant. They would plant somebody in there, some martyr, and try to regulate it even more.
Humans are prone to have psychotic breaks, so
yeah,
there would eventually be one story where that happens.
I still wouldn't believe it.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, I would think it was staged in some fashion.
I strongly believe in a armed society as a polite society, for sure. And it gives a lot of people courage when they otherwise wouldn't have it, especially in marginalized communities that are run by gangs. Law-abiding citizens aren't going to own the guns, They're going to be overrun by gang members, and you're going to have to do what the gangs tell you. Mm-hmm. But if the community as a whole also have firearms, you'll be hard-pressed to find gang members who are actually willing to die for no reason. They still want to live, but they want to oppress other people, steal their money, take drugs.
Yeah, there's some towns where just walking down the street, you have a 1 in 10 chance to die.
Yeah.
Which is wild.
Yeah.
Tyler Oliveira did a video on the city with the highest gun crimes. It's a pretty interesting video. All of his videos seem to be pretty interesting.
Has he come out with one in the last week
He
or so?
recently did one about somewhere where like brothels or sex work is legal.
That's right. I didn't watch that one.
Yeah, I didn't watch that one either.
I'm trying to remember the exact number, but I know this has been reiterated by many people online that if you take the 11 cities in the United States with the most gun violence, the United States becomes like the 87th most crime place in the world or something. Overall gun violence, where America is like third or fourth, if you take the 11 most.
I thought it was only the top 5 cities, and it drops us down to like 5th or 3rd from last.
I'm trying to remember or think of where I heard that from, but.
Yeah, I haven't heard that statistic. That's interesting. Yeah, if you take just the most, the couple examples that are terrible, and you omit those, then it's not bad. It makes sense.
Look that up and
because you got Atlanta, where it's a couple murders a day or a couple murders a week.
I thought the worst were like Chicago, Detroit, Baltimore.
I think Atlanta's the worst.
This is a quick cursory. Most gun violence by city. We have Ocala, Florida, Detroit, Michigan, Oklahoma City, Knoxville, Tennessee, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, Columbus, Ohio, Cincinnati, Ohio.
Columbus, really? Columbus was really nice when I went there.
The murder rate in Columbus
Probably varies by neighborhood.
Oh, see, I put gun violence, but it's saying straight out the murder rate in Columbus is 20.94, but it's not saying. You see, even Brave is giving me kind of like mixed information here. It's just saying flat out murder rate when I specifically put gun violence.
Yeah, because most murders aren't carried out with guns.
Right here, city dashboard, gun homicide. An estimated nearly 17,000 people died by gun homicide across the U.S.
Per year.
That was in 2022.
That's a lot.
It is a lot.
But a lot of it's probably gang related. And that's what they typically fail to release.
Gun homicide rates were notably low, 3 or fewer deaths per 100,000 people in 3 large cities, San Diego, San Jose, and New York. Gun homicide rate decreased the most in Trenton, New Jersey. Well, New Jersey has some of the strictest laws as well. Like, you have to retreat from your own home if somebody breaks in.
Yeah, I remember that. I think Tim covered it a while ago where the lady went into New Jersey by accident with a gun. She got put 2 years in prison.
Yeah, he brings that story up a lot.
Crazy.
But that's also where the story, it came out of New Jersey, the story where a man was on vacation, somebody broke into his house and ended up breaking a limb, sued the homeowner and won. Like, what? You broke into my house.
I think they did that on an episode. That's probably where the episode of it was one of the cop shows. Somebody fell through. They were trying to break into their house. They fell through the skylight and ended up getting stabbed through the leg on something and sued for some amount of money and won.
Yep.
Which, how?
Makes no sense.
If a criminal can sue the person they were trying to rob because they messed up, I mean, there's something wrong. There's something wrong with our legal system.
Oh, there's many things wrong with our legal system. We know that.
Like, even if our laws were worded to where you would be able to do that, they should be able to look at that and be like, that's ridiculous. We're gonna throw that out.
Yeah. Okay, so compare gun homicides across cities. St. Louis has, it looks like, the highest, 66 for 100,000. Birmingham, Alabama, 61.
Where's St. Louis? Illinois?
Montana.
Oh. Yeah.
There's St. Louis's in Montana?
Or wait.
No, it's Missouri.
Missouri.
Yeah. Portsmouth, Virginia. That's a huge decline. It went from 61 to 49 per 100,000. Then Detroit with 44. Memphis, 42. Milwaukee, 37. Little Rock, Arkansas, 35. Atlanta, 33. Camden.
I thought Atlanta would be top 5.
Cleveland, San Bernardino, Philadelphia. Okay, so those are cities. And now let's look at states as a whole. States with highest gun deaths.
Yo, that keyboard is loud as fuck.
Yeah, it is. Just be glad it's not what are they called? Where you can really hear the clicks?
Like the mechanical ones?
Mechanicals, yeah.
Sounds like you're firing a gun.
State of the states, firearm mortality. Oh, CDC.
Who keeps breathing into the mic mad loud? Move your nose.
Maybe that was me. There.
Maybe me. I've been having some breathing issues. Age-adjusted death rates. No. Death rate. Death location. Download data. CBDC. Is that? Yep. Firearm mortality by rate. Alabama. Alaska. Alaska is probably suicide. be honest. It's probably suicide. Arizona, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Connecticut. So let's see. Where's California on this
Connecticut.
list?
That's
Yeah.
kind of shocking.
New York is way down the list. It's like 30th. And then, well, 90% of New York is red.
Yeah.
Only 3 spots in New York are blue. Ohio's way down there. Pennsylvania's way down there. That's below. Where the hell's California?
Which one's last?
Wyoming. And that's probably because it's all farm.
Yeah.
So it's like, what, mountains and farms?
New Hampshire's probably pretty low too.
So the bottom is Wyoming, Wisconsin. West Virginia is the 3rd lowest, and they have constitutional carry.
Yeah.
Washington, Virginia, Vermont, Utah, Texas is in the bottom 10. Bottom 10. Then Tennessee. So see, some of the highest gun death rates in cities have the lowest death rates by state. So it sounds like cities might be the problem.
Yeah.
It is cities.
Yeah, big
big
cities are.
Oh, California is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 5th highest gun mortality rate. Who would have guessed? Yeah. I mean, it is a lot of typically red states that have the highest gun mortality rate. It's just something that would have to be kept track of because of, constitutional carry laws. More people are going to end up owning guns, so there will be more gun deaths.
How many of those gun deaths are self-defense?
Oof.
Yeah, you're just looking at death by gun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's going to be
this is firearm mortality, and
that's going to be a really skewed number.
They even consider, suicide counts as firearm mortality because it technically is. So that's a lot of.
Finding specific numbers are so hard.
Yeah. It's one of those things where you just get the base number and then you start spewing it. It was kind of like the 72 cents to the dollar argument. Like, yes, women make 72 cents to the dollar of men because insert 40 different information points, and it's like, oh, I see why they earn less. They don't earn less because they're women. They earn less because they do less. That's why. More guns.
Yeah, more guns.
Oh,
when you're born at the hospital, they hand the baby a gun.
Absolutely. You get your first taste of cold steel. This is an interesting one because this is something I've been seeing more and more. Do you guys... So the statement goes that if it requires the labor of another person, it is not a human right. Is that logical? Does that sound feasible?
Wait, what?
If it requires the labor of another human being, it is not a human right.
Then we don't have the right to bear arms with that logic because creating arms takes the labor of another human being.
Well, you can make your own gun.
So
you can, but most guns that are being bought is taking the labor of another human being.
The argument for it is forced labor. So, like, the bigger argument for, say, healthcare, if you have a right to healthcare, that means the doctor is required to service you at a hospital. But if you have the right to bear arms, as we see it here in the United States, we cannot force a gun manufacturer to give us a gun. We have to purchase it from them.
Well, yeah, of course they're not going to do it for free.
So this is the argument when it comes to healthcare. Is healthcare a human right? And can we force a hospital?
You have the right to take care of your own health.
So it's not per se a human right. It is not your right to say the government needs to pay for my medical bills.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, it comes down to whether or not
Right.
the government should be able to...
force other people to give you the service.
Well, no, of course, they're going to...
Yeah, I can hear that from your pewter. So that's an interesting, right? Where it's the large argument right now for healthcare as a human right is the argument ultimately comes down to, if healthcare is a human right, do we force hospitals, doctors, physicians to give that service to you, or can they still deny the service?
Well, they're going to do it because they're getting paid.
Yeah. Same thing with gun manufacturers. The reason why they manufacture guns is because we buy it from them.
Yeah.
But we can't force a doctor to give a prescription to somebody, or, hey, I have cancer. It's my right to get chemotherapy, so you're forced to give me the chemotherapy.
That would be discrimination. Because they're getting paid regardless. If the government just pays for everybody's health care, regardless of whatever it is, they can't deny somebody just...
Right. Maybe I'm not articulating. So we can't force doctors. Like, the government cannot force a doctor to have a patient or to give services to a patient, right? Or do you believe that we should?
Yes.
If
If you're going to become a doctor, you should, the oath should be to cure anybody that comes in, regardless of yeah.
So a doctor, trying to clarify. So should a doctor have a right to refuse a patient?
No.
Okay. So should healthcare ultimately be a human right in America? Should it be a constitutional right to healthcare? Okay. I'm kind of still split on it. I don't think it should be a human right. I don't think...
Why?
Because I don't believe if I make poor choices in my life that lead to...
Well, there can
health
be...
effects.
It sometimes it's not your fault.
Sure. But a lot of times it is.
I wouldn't even say a lot of times.
No?
Like, cancer most of the time is not people's fault.
Oh, for
Yes,
sure.
it is.
For sure.
A lot of times it can be very much self-induced through diet, through habits.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But there's you got a lot of people that live the healthiest life they can,
And then something
they
happens.
get cancer.
For sure.
And it's...
So if we were to say healthcare, if an amendment were to be drawn up where the United States recognized healthcare as a human right, we would have to stipulate some things, or we would encourage people to make bad decisions just for free healthcare.
Sure. Yeah, some people might take advantage of it, but I don't see that as a reason to not do it.
Okay.
If healthcare was a right and the government was paying for our healthcare, do you think they'd allow all the shit that they put in our food now that's pretty much poison?
Absolutely, because it continues the economy.
I don't
It'll
think they
keep
would.
flowing.
If the government was paying for our healthcare, look at some of these European countries where it's government funded healthcare. They do not have the same ingredients in their food as we have here.
Oh yeah, it's not even they.
Not even
There's so many
close,
things
like-
that we allow that
Mountain,
no other
Mountain
country in
Dew.
the world.
Mountain Dew is banned in Germany.
Right. I wonder if that's a direct correlation or if there's other things.
The way I'm correlating
Well,
it
they want
is
our people
so the way
fat
that I'm
and stupid.
correlating it is if the government's paying for healthcare, they want their citizens to be a little more healthy, so they're not putting such a big chunk of the budget at healthcare.
Then they would just raise our taxes, just like they do in European nations that have universal
Oh yeah,
health
tax
care.
at 60, 65% or 50% or something.
But why are so many of them still so happy? Their happiness levels are much higher than here in America. Why?
Because, I don't know. That's something we would have to try to dive into on a
Yeah, because
different-
I've heard those. A lot of those studies aren't accurate. I guess. Yeah. I guess
How
we
would they
have
not
to
be
see.
accurate?
I don't remember. I would have to look into it a bit more.
Yeah.
Because
It's-
it's the I think it has to do with the wording they use.
And how large are the pools? Like, how many people do they ask the question to? Where do they ask them the
where are
questions?
they asking
Like,
the people? Yeah.
are they asking the homeless people in the most overcrowded cities in these countries, or are they asking people who live on the countrysides, who live
So on a
fairly
map
pleasant
of on a
lives?
map of global happiness, the very first four that pop up before I even click the other 109
Switzerland
rows
first?
say Finland, Denmark, Iceland, and Sweden. Those are the very
Those
first
are
four.
also
So all the
very
Nordics?
Yeah, they're all also very racist.
They're
people.
very
And they-
homogenized. Yeah. But I mean, Japan is very racist as well, and they're fairly happy. So
No, Japan,
yeah, they're fairly happy.
their suicide rate is insane.
Is it right now?
Oh, it's absurd.
I wonder what's happening over there.
They're getting worked to the bone. They have to put safety nets in a lot of companies because people are jumping off the roofs and stuff.
I know that was China.
No, it was
But
Japan.
that's happening in Japan too now.
Probably both.
I mean, yeah, their culture has. They've been like that for a couple generations now. I think that has a lot to do with our meddling. You know, we kind of push them towards.
Well,
the
they've always
Western
been
maritime-
work, and it just takes a toll on them, and they can't do it anymore.
I don't know if they've. Always
Yeah, I'm not
been
even
like
seeing
that.
Japan in the top 30 here. At least America is
Wow.
sitting at 23.
Man, they hide it very well then, because all you ever see is how happy the Japanese people are. Huh.
Are they happy or are they just
Well,
respectful to one
putting on the
another?
facade.
They're
They're
putting on
they're
the
respectful to one another.
Yeah.
Interesting. It is strange that the quote unquote happiest culture is like the Nordic homogenized white people. That's very interesting.
And I think a lot of the surveys ask, are the services adequate or are you okay with them? I don't think it specifically says,
So they're
Are
not
you-
asking, are you happy?
Yeah,
It's, are
they're
you
saying-
satisfied?
yeah, are you
with what
sad?
we
And they say
offer?
no. They say, oh, you're not sad. That means you're happy.
Right.
I think it's a lot of it's wordplay.
And it's kind of like day to day. Are you sad today? No, I'm happy. Okay, cool. You're not going to ask
Yeah,
somebody
they ask
the day
everybody-
their dog dies
Yeah.
whether or not they're sad.
They ask everybody on like some holiday or something where everybody's
Things can always be manipulated.
yeah.
Very interesting. I saw another commercial specific for New York about the dangers of vaping. You know what the opening message of the commercial was? 9 out of 10 doctors used to recommend Camel cigarettes. If they lied about that, then they're probably lying about this. And I'm like, I thought it was going to be a COVID-19 commercial, but it wasn't. It was tobacco. And I'm like, oh, the fucking irony, the absolute irony that you'll say doctors will lie about cigarettes, but not the shot. Oh, the absolute fucking irony.
That
of it,
would have
man.
been crazy.
Oh, I thought I was going to shit my pants. I really did. But then it was like, vaping is dangerous. And I'm like, you were so close. So close. But I'm sure there were some people who were like, yeah, doctors lie. Yeah. 5th, 6th, 7th. It's like, yeah.
Probably gonna be
Good
a lot
job.
of voiceovers, videos done of that.
Well, we're just about,
Got anything else to add?
yeah. Second Amendment's pretty easy to cover.
Yeah, I think we're all pretty much on the same page with some caveats. We all think everybody should have, or most people should have guns.
Yeah. I even think, I do absolutely believe that large cities would actually be safer if the citizens were allowed to carry guns. Like, if there was constitutional carry in the cities, yes, we would see a lot of murders for 5 or 6 years. But that's a self-correcting problem.
Yeah.
It truly is. And it's horrible to say it, but
There can only be so many criminals.
yeah, you cannot change certain people's minds. If they're going to go out and rob you at gunpoint, they're putting their life on the line. And eventually a good Samaritan is going to see that and be like, I'm sick of this person. We're done. Like, you're not going to keep robbing people. Bye-bye. And it is what it is. It's awful to say that, but some human beings are awful human beings. Yeah, constitutional carry across the board, all 50 states. That's my
I mean,
stance.
I still think there should be 2 United States.
But then they wouldn't be united.
Split it. Well, you can be united and still be
But if the whole United States was then split into two, it would no longer be a United States. It'd be the divided states.
That's fine.
I mean, if you really look at it,
It's only a
are
name.
the 50 states united right
No.
now?
No.
Yeah, we're 50.
Each state is almost like its own country. I've been to over 30 of them. So
That's the argument I've been,
over
I've been
30.
saying for a
Probably been to
couple
like
of-
9.
That's the argument I've been making for a couple of years now. Is like we're literally just 50 small countries that have federalized under one banner, but right now we're nowhere's near united.
No.
Like it's really sad, but it is what it is. You can't expect such a country to be of one mind.
Yeah.
Like it's not.
Yeah,
it's
that's
not really
why-
possible.
Just have one side ran by Trump and one side ran by Biden, and see how see how one flourishes. And
We've seen that experiment. We've seen that. It was called West and East Germany, and we know which side fled to the other. So we've seen that experiment play out. It's not a good one. There's a whole lot of starvation on one side. But all right, hit that outro.
yep, yeah, I think we had a pretty good conversation. A lot of agreeing, a little bit of disagreeing. But on the whole, yeah, guns good. Taking them away, bad. We've seen that in a couple countries, and it turned out not so great. But thank you for watching. Hopefully you tune in next week where we cover third, fourth,
It's
fifth.
on my phone. I believe it is the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 7th, and 8th.
Oh, big chunk. Big chunk.
Yeah, because a lot of them have to do with just individual civil liberties.
Oh, okay, so you can
and
kind of just
recognize-
categorize them into
yeah,
one.
the recognition of what you as an American citizen have as rights to protect yourself against like the government itself.
Okay.
So like the 4th and 5th are, you can't incriminate yourself. When you're out in public, you have a right to refuse searches and seizures that are unlawful.
Yeah.
things like
Okay.
that.
Yeah, I'll have to look into it a bit more. I only knew the first and the second.
Yeah.
That's it.
A lot of people don't know them all.
Yeah,
I
a lot
mean,
of people only know the first and the second.
I definitely plead the fifth, though.
Oh yeah, never talk to cops.
Yeah.
Like it's unless you absolutely have to or something like that. You really should never answer police questions. It's not safe anymore because a
Yeah.
lot of the times they're just fishing.
Always
They're
have
fishing.
a body cam or a dash cam when you
Yeah, turn your phone on immediately.
Yeah, mhm.
Like it's completely lawful. If they tell you to put away, you just say no. If they tell you again, you just don't respond. Just stay quiet. It's very simple. Just
Yep.
stay quiet.
Ask for a sergeant. Well, on that note, goodbye.